Hi friends! As you can see, we're diving into the Fancy Face Tina, our Tina, new collaboration with Sydney Grace, tropiCOLOR. See what she did there? She combined her favorite things, tropiCOLOR everything and color everything. Congratulations Tina for the collaboration. I was delighted to see that her palette has finally released. I actually had no idea, but I'm so oblivious to obvious things, so just don't mind me. I will highly recommend that you watch Tina's video. I will make sure to post the video link down below and up here on the card as she goes in depth about each color, the formula, and what was really wonderful about the entire video was how each color represented somewhere in Jamaica in terms of the landscape, the history, Jamaica's treasures, or her own personal history, right, as a child, school uniforms. We'll get there. And having that connection with the creator and the collaborator, I think contributes to the user's creativity and definitely encourages just that connection, because again, each color has a story, and I think that enhances the experience overall. The palette is scheduled to release on Thursday, September 1st, I believe 9 a.m. Eastern. If that's not correct, I'll correct myself up above next to me. And it retails for $60. It is a 18 pan eyeshadow palette. It is on the expensive side, but Tina had explained, being an indie brand like Sydney Grace is, and it being a collaboration, it will be more on the expensive side because typically with indie brands, they have to pay more for certain formulas, for certain colors. It's a lot more complicated than how I just presented, but that is the deal with the price. And Tina has said, listen, if it's not on your budget, if this is not for you, it's all good. But we're gonna get into the palette, the swatches. I think I'll do 4 looks. Could always come back on here to do more, and I can't wait to see more of Tina's looks. And if it's your first time here, hi. I'm Alicia, an online coach who specializes in flexibility, bodyweight training, helping those obtain sustainable habits in both nutrition and movement. I also love to talk about eyeshadow palettes. And in honor of the tropiCOLOR release, I got my pine trees on my ears. And this is her own design with not only the font, but with the silhouette here, the beautiful sunset motif. You have the cardboard sleeve and the actual cardboard palette with a magnetic closure. Oop. Plastic sleeve, and here you have the palette. Can't wait to go into the reason why Tina chose the colors that she did, but she had also mentioned that the whole reason this collaboration started was because she was inspired by Mel Thompson. Rest in peace, our Mel Thompson, where Mel had said she reached out to Sydney Grace to do her Tiny Marvels collaboration, and Tina was like, has a great relationship with both Heather and Laura, the sisters that run Sydney Grace, and thought to reach out to them as well with the collaboration idea. They happily agreed, and now we have the tropiCOLOR palette, and Tina deliberately wanted this palette despite her love of color. Tina is like colorful, here, hair. She wanted to create a palette that had some color but was more subdued and muted than like vibrant and neon. Because we know Tina could go crazy with the neons. I mean, that would be easy for her. And I'm sure in her heart she wanted to go there maybe one day, but I think it was wise for her to go a little more muted with the quote-unquote more colorful hues in here, because the Sydney Grace aesthetic that Tina had explained is very much neutral in their approach, and I agree. Sydney Grace was very kind to send me PR, which I failed to show because I keep forgetting to visit my P.O. box. So huge thank you to Sydney Grace, but just to give you an idea, this is their California Coast palette, which I used over the weekend, and I adore these shades. They're the rose gold, kind of peachy brown, but mauvey grayish roses in there. And then you have Mountain Trail, which leans more mustard brown, olive with both the mattes and the metallics. So you can see Sydney nails it when it comes to the neutral color approach, but with several nuances, whether it's more neutral rose, more neutral olive as you saw. And then the formula, outstanding. If you've never tried Sydney Grace eyeshadows, one of the best indie brand shadows out there. The mattes are beyond easy to blend, very smooth. The metallics are nuts, very buttery smooth, emollient, and then they have the more shiny shades depending on the color and the formula. So Tina wanted to combine that neutral sensibility with her love of color to ensure whoever decides to buy this palette that they feel a little more comfortable making that decision, right? That they would say, hey, you know, I don't wear color every day, but I think I can give this palette a shot. Where it holds your hand in a sense, because you have the neutrals in here, and although you have colorful mattes and metallics in here, again, they're a little more muted and not as vibrant and a lot more approachable than what you think just from seeing them in the palette. If you decide to buy it and you start playing with these colors, it's like, oh, okay. And if you experiment with where you place these shades on the eyes, I think you would feel more empowered to use them more often, which we'll speak about. And again, why I would suggest you watch Tina's video. She explains the different regions of the eye that you could use the more colorful shadows on, not necessarily the lid, which is maybe someone who typically would think, oh, the lid, where else are you going to put it? You can apply the more colorful shades on the inner corner of the eye, lower lash line, accent liner moment, right? So we could go over those possibilities as well. So let's get into these swatches. We first have coconut, rum raisin, and sun rays. Coconut is a yellow tone satin off-white. Rum raisin is a beautifully toned neutral brown. Sun rays is a muted marigold matte. Palm trees is a muted green. Woo, but that is so pretty. Maroon is a red tone brown matte. Cocoa beans is a blackened brown matte. It looks black, but Tina made sure that it was like brown black. Or maybe black brown. Lignum vitae is a duochrome. Ooh, isn't that pretty? Blue Maho is the periwinkle matte, which I actually applied on the inner corner for one of my looks that I could recreate for this video. Dr. Bird is a flaky, not quite a multi-chrome. Tina said it has different colors in there. It is the flakiest out of the metallics, I believe, but you could use this with a wet brush or just use your finger to tap a little bit on the lid. Cane Fields is this green teal metallic. Ooh. Walmers is the color of her high school uniform. So pretty. And you can see the difference between the two blues, one leaning more lavender, the other leaning more true pull blue. Negril is your navy matte. Tropical Punch is your gem tone magenta satin. Isn't that lovely? And I think it has like a very lightweight blue flip in there. Waterfalls, this is it. This is like blue water metallic. My goodness. Rainforest is more teal turquoise leaning compared to Cane Fields. You can see the difference there. The nuances of those turquoises and teals. Hillshire or Hillshire, depending on. Beautifully bronzed taupe. Milk River is a warm terracotta hued matte. Maybe like an orange brown. And Grape Nut, Tina's favorite ice cream, one of her favorite ice cream flavors, is more of a bronzed hue metallic. So here are all the shades from tropiCOLOR, and you can see despite this palette having all these brighter shades, they go well together. You could find a way. You can find a way. And with that said, let's hop in a little closer so you could see these tutorials. That's enough. I'll first prepare the lids by applying my Linda Hellberg eye primer. So the first look I'll do is what I did the other day, and I think if not already, I will have this on my IG stories if you want to take a look at the photo. Going in first with Rum Raisin is more than your neutral brown shade. It's a great transition color, but it's not super warm. It's like very woodsy, dare I say, a little olivey. Maybe that's just because I have a slight olive undertone in my complexion, so when I apply this shade, that's how it appears. But great solo if just through the crease or on the entire lid as well. And I think I went in with Grape Nut next, and fantastic shade, whether with Hillshire or Grape Nut. You could combine any of those metallics and Rum Raisin will hold it down. And the Sydney Grace metallic formula is stupendous. It is a little tighter than some metallic formulas I have used from other brands. So if you have textured lids, just make sure you don't overload the brush. And you just take time in spreading the color evenly across the lid. Because if you apply too much, I think the creamier slightly tighter texture of these metallics could grab any lid texture. But if you use a light hand, I think you should be okay. Rum Raisin here on the lower lash line. And you can stop right here, right? This is a great place to kind of pause on the eye look. It's smoky on me, but you can dial the intensity, maybe apply a little less grape nut or maybe a little less Rum Raisin. But I wanted to show how you can change the contrast here by adding either maroon or cocoa beans. Cocoa beans is going to bump up the intensity like whoa. It is the deepest matte in the palette. If you wanted to introduce a little more shading but don't want to totally commit to cocoa beans, then maroon, you can lightly tap here on the outer part of the lid. You could have went in with this step first before applying grape nut, but I think totally fine if you decide to change your mind. And maroon is just a lovely shade when combined with Rum Raisin. They go beautifully well together, and with any of these bronzy taupe metallics, so pretty. Another way you can introduce one of these brighter mattes, even if you've mostly used the neutrals so far, is to lightly go in with sun rays with a very fluffy brush and just go on the edges of what you just applied. It's not going to be a lot of introduction of color, but you can see that it enhances the gradient there a little bit. So if you wanted to introduce another color but soften the edges as well, then you could use sun rays for that purpose. Now here is the fun part. If you wanted to use one of these pastel shades and you're like, I don't know, man, Blue Maho is great on the inner corner, and when paired with neutrals, oh my goodness, it's one of the best pairings I think you can grab from this palette. And I like to use a small dense brush so you can pick up enough of the shadow, stamp it on the inner corner of your eye. And isn't that lovely? Not only will it serve the purpose of highlighting the inner corner, but it introduces another shade to the mix. And it's up to you with how wide you want to take the shade. If you want to keep it exclusively here on the upper part of the inner corner, or bring it down a little bit to the inner lower part of your lash line. Why not, right? Because you have the room and it's still light enough. I don't think it overwhelms the look at all. In fact, it just kind of enhances it. It's like, ooh, what's that? If you wanted to add another color, you can go in with grape nut on the majority of the lower lash line. You know what? That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna keep it very simple, okay? So I'll take the same brush and pull that color through and kind of combining it with both the blue shade and Rum Raisin. Something I did in that photo that I didn't do here is take cocoa beans with a shader brush and just kind of lightly tap here on my lash line. So you can use cocoa beans as a wing liner moment, and this matte packs a punch. I mean, all you need to do is just stamp it and it will stay. If it's more comfortable for you to go in with a pencil first to kind of sketch out where you need to place your shadow, that's fine too. Something I did is take coconut and just undercurrent that wing, or I didn't really make it a wing, but what I try to do is underblock the top liner. So I love introducing a lighter shade under the darker wing because it just kind of gives you like a swoop. Again, don't need to do this. And might I even add, you could have used coconut on the inner corner instead of the blue shade. But look, you got a little bit of a wing. You got some of the maroon there for a little bit of intensity, but not too much. I think it just enhances the gradient. That beautiful bronze shade on the lid and the pastel blue on the inner corner. What shall we do now on the other side? I will purposefully use one of the duochrome shades, just so you can see. And I'm taking it with my finger, placing that on the lid first. Just tap it, tap, tap. Don't worry about adding any mattes right now. It's fine. This is a lovely texture because if you don't know how to go from here, you can take another brush with that same shade and start to fluff that shade through the crease. And it's pretty smooth enough that it can kind of fluff on its own as you blend it, so you don't necessarily need to add a matte to this shade if you like. And to keep it very simple, you don't need to add anything else. You could just wear this on your lid. And you're like, why would I do that? It looks like back in the day rehearsal blue makeup on the lids. While I realize that, one of those things that you just kind of have to commit to, and it's okay, because even though it's blue, it's not in your face. And I agree with Tina when she said that. It's still subdued even for its duochrome properties. You could even just apply this on the inner corner instead. Maybe you could apply this instead of a blue maho on this side. But what I want to do now is take Tropical Punch. And you're like, oh gosh, what is she going to do now? Tap that on the outer part of the lid, because I think like the flip shade is the same in Lignum Vitae as it is as Tropical Punch. Tropical. And I think that adds a really nice gradient if you wanted to introduce another shade. They go very well together. And you can see I'm mostly tapping the color on and then lightly fluffing for the blend. For inner corner, I think I want to do Sun Rays. I think that'll be a nice fun shade to use as inner corner. So on me, it's not going to look as bright. So I'll do Sun Rays first, and then I'll do Coconut on top. So you're mixing a little bit of both. You could tap in both pans and get a little bit of that marigold yellow with still that yellow undertone in Coconut. Now for the lower lash line, why not? Let's do Rainforest. Let's just go for it. I'll take Rainforest on the majority of the lower lash line. Something you can do if you have more neutral colors on top and you don't want to fully commit to how I just did here on the lid using another color. You could just do the turquoise on the bottom. But I want to take Dr. Bird, place it lightly over Lignum Vitae to add a little more shine. And I think it's just a great opportunity to kind of bump up the reflectivity. And it's a similar color, yeah, so I think it works great. All right, it's time to apply some lashes and I'll be right back. Here is the finished look for both eyes. On one side, we took a more neutral dominant approach, introducing splashes of the lighter pastel shades, and on the other eye, we went totally color dominant, but I would argue that these shades are still mostly muted and I think very much user friendly, but I can understand how you would go more neutral dominant on the lid and then apply the accent moments with color, whether it be the inner corner, the lower lash line, or maybe you'll use a black liner on the upper lash line and then stamp one of the metallic shades on there. I love both and they were fairly easy to achieve. I mean, one thing about Sydney Grace textures is that they're very easy to deal with, but we got a lot more shades to go through. We'll see what we'll come up with in the second round. I'll take this off. See you back here in a minute. Part 2. Let's see. What can we do? You know what I want to do? I want to do row by row. I think that'll be a really interesting approach. Not that I'm going to do a column. Like for instance, what we did in the first demo on this eye, this was this column mostly. I went to Rainforest for the lower lash line, but Coconut on the inner corner, Lignum and Tropical lid and outer corner. I invited some sun rays just to kind of spruce up the inner corner with Coconut, but this was the majority of what we did on that eye. And here I think will be really nice just to quickly go over waterfalls on the lid, rum raisin through the crease, blue maho on the inner corner, or you could flip it and do waterfalls, blue maho through the crease, and then rum raisin maybe like on the outer corner, maybe, or blue maho on the lid, rum raisin as a liner. This is a great combination too. I think I want to do these two columns here. Let's do an all matte look. I'll go in with Milk River first, which just looks lovely and can't wait to hop in. This is the warmest matte out of all of them and is picking up more orange on my skin tone. But I think when I combine it with maroon, maybe it'll ground it a little bit. Now with maroon, I'm going to tap that on the outer part of my eye. Tapping first to get the majority of the color on there, and then pulling the rest through the crease. Taking Milk River just a little higher, and definitely up to you with how far you want to take this gradient. But I think these two make a lovely combination. Yeah, maroon is not going to overtake the look, but it provides just enough intensity for this gradient if you wanted to kind of have like a sunset, sunrise type of a feel here on the crease. Now, taking Walmers here on the lid, and we're tapping. We want to tap. We don't want to swirl and twirl, as we want the shade to maintain its color. You could also place perhaps a lighter toned primer on the lid and kind of carve out that area. But isn't that cool? I think this is a great way to introduce or use the matte colors, not just accent shades, but really committing and putting it on the lid. And placing a little more Milk River here on the inner part of the eye, just so it can appear more continuous. Now, these are all the 3 shades, but you know I love to do inner corner stuff. We can do coconut here on the inner part of the eye as our dominant highlight shade. On the lower lash line, you can apply any of the metallics. So if you want to go with waterfalls here, rainforest, I think that's a great opportunity to use another shade. But for simplicity's sake, I'll just use Milk River for the rest of the lower lash line here. And I'll invite a little more coconut just to pull it further along, deeper into the lower lash line, the top part of it. All right. And we're done. Now this column, Hilshire on the lid or palm trees and cane fields. I think that will be the most obvious pairing, and then Hilshire on the lower lash line. Or, hold on, let's do this instead. Taking cane fields first with my finger. The reason I'm doing this is I feel it might be easier to apply the metallic first and then go in with the matte, because now you kind of have like a guide here and say, all right, I have to put palm trees where cane fields ended, and then use that shade to buff the edges instead of trying to shape the matte first. If you're not comfortable dealing with these types of mattes color wise, you can apply the metallic first just as an outline, if you will, to help guide your matte blending. And then if you need to go back in, you can tap the metallic on the portions where the metallic meets the matte to refine that a little bit more. Now with Hilshire, I'm placing this on the inner corner. Yes! And it can kind of overlap cane fields a little bit. I actually sabotaged myself. I was supposed to apply cane fields more prominently on the lid and have Hilshire more dominant on the inner corner. But I'm not mad at this gradient because Hilshire looks great on my inner corner. You know, it doesn't drag it down. It still serves as a really cool highlight shade. I don't know how or why, but it's happening. And then cane field on the lower lash line. I forgot to mention this on my first demo, but please feel free to apply any type of fun liner to your liking. I rarely do liner. I'm just lazy and I feel it's tougher to wipe off when I'm doing multiple looks in one video. Yes, I could use Q-tips. I know. Just don't want to. And then Hilshire on the inner part of the lower lash line, just wrapping that color around. A great opportunity to use sun rays here. Sun rays with palm trees. What a gradient. Really nice here, and I think combines well. So you can add another matte if you weren't too sure where to use sun rays. You could use palm trees to blend out cane fields first, and then sun rays to blend the edges. All right. It's lashes time. I'll be right back. And that is the final round, fam. I challenged myself to sticking with a column at a time, and I think this is a great approach. If you don't know where to begin, just go for the columns and plop on these colors however you want. I think Tina did a fantastic job, again, in including color, but in a more subdued way that makes it easy to layer. I don't think you have to worry about muddiness or what have you, especially if you stick to 1, 2, or 3 at a time. 4 at most, and I would say the 4th shade will target like the accent regions of your eye, inner corner, lower inner lash line. The more dominant colors that you place on your lid and crease, I think those will be like the 2 big shades that you can stick to, and then the other colors on smaller portions of your eyes, instead of trying to combine 4 shades on the lid and crease. I think that's when you run into trouble. I think if you have more of a simplistic approach to tropiCOLOR, you might surprise yourself in discovering that, hey, I applied colors on the lid that I didn't even think possible for my vibe or my aesthetic, and here you are just expanding horizons and putting a pale blue on your lid. You never knew you could. I will continue playing with this palette, and I had mentioned in a few videos back that I was thinking about starting a membership. So any tutorials coming after the main video tutorial, I will probably put in the membership portion of my channel in the future. And that goes for more palettes that I presented as like the premiere video going into it, fresh, first impressions, swatches, the first 2 or 4 looks, and anything thereafter I'll probably do as a membership video. So that's what I'm thinking about, and if you're wondering if I'll do more looks with this palette, that's probably the route that I will go. But let me know if you plan to pick up tropiCOLOR. Again, a huge congratulations to Tina. Thank you to Sydney Grace and Tina for sending me this palette. It was a pleasure and honor to receive. Thank you all for the gift. And I'll see you down in those comments, fam. Until then, that is a wrap. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope this video helped. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up or maybe consider subscribing to my channel. And until then, I will see you on here again with another review tutorial, eyeshadow palette video, or a monthly fade. Take care, and I will see you again soon.